It is time for the next installment of Conversations, underwritten by Amber Engine. Amber Engine was founded by a team of home furnishing industry innovators, technologists, and experts. Their whole mission is to create a powerful set of tools that make data sharing for the home furnishing industry easy and efficient. We recently added a beloved furniture sponsor, Mo's Home Collection. I'm Dean Horowitz, president of PBM and publisher of Furniture Today. In each of these episodes, we talk to a company or individual that's really pushing our industry forward through innovative thinking and execution. This conversation is with a friend of mine, John Burns. I've known him for about 20 years. He founded an independent research and consulting service related to the U.S. housing industry. His information is more than applicable to home furnishings and how you could trend the future of our business. He has a new book out called Big Shifts Ahead. It focuses in on demographic changes and a look back. It'll give you a perspective that'll help you not on the retail level, but also on the manufacturing and design level. Here's the conversation. How about we start off with a little bit about your company? Who do you serve? What are you looking at before we even get to the book?
Yeah, so I've got 70 people. We do market research on the housing market for sale and for rent, 17 offices around the country. Two things, we do consulting studies for people to help them make good decisions, and we also have a regular research subscription product to help people figure out what's going on in the housing market.
If I'm a builder, how am I using your information?
So we help you navigate the cycle. We help you decide when to bet heavy, when to pull back a little bit. We also help you understand, should I be moving to the entry level, the move up, or the active adult? Or if I'm a big builder, which markets look like I should put money in this year versus other markets? And then we help you design the communities and the homes as well. So we do the market research to help you understand what customers will pay for, and then hopefully that helps you make more money.
Everyone wants that, but for furniture, there's a nice link, obviously, for what homes and what kind of demographics. How about let's spend a minute and profile a community that's doing really well, like Portland or Seattle, and talk about what are the guiding points that builders are using that maybe retailers of furniture and home furnishings could really learn from.
Well, I'm based here in Southern California, so I'll pick this market because it tends to be a design trend leader, if you will. And the whole outdoor living really got started here a few years ago, which I think has had a perfect example of how it's impacted the furniture business. I gotta believe the furniture guys are doing outdoor.
Exploding right now. Everyone's talking about outdoor.
You know, and municipalities across the country have moved towards smaller lots. Actually, when I got into the business, it used to be the opposite way, and so you got to build a smaller home on a smaller lot. But that's caused architects to start focusing on let's use the outdoors to make the home feel bigger, and that's part of what this outdoor living is all about.
Do builders really understand how to create the outdoor space? Do they get where the kitchen goes, where the living room goes, where shade is, and all those elements?
Well, you know, I think they do, and if they make a mistake, it won't sell, and so then they'll fix it.
They learn pretty fast.
Yeah. You know, I'll give you one tip. One of the trends we're seeing now that I think is going to work its way across the country is roof decks. Speaking of outdoor living, there's more and more high-density 2- and 3-story homes with roof decks, and that requires different furniture up there. But that's become people's backyard and people's place for their pet.
Actually, one of our titles, Casual Living, picked up on your article about that and did a whole story and got a lot of really positive feedback about the opportunity. So that was really well regarded.
There you go.
Okay, so we go to all these conferences, we consume all this information. I don't know about you, but I'm tired of hearing about millennials.
Right.
So is that the right way to look at demographics today and in the future, not only for home furnishings, but everything within business?
Absolutely not. So millennials span a period of 19 years. So my daughter, who's a junior in high school, and Mark Zuckerberg are both millennials, and I think they're in different stages of their life. We break them up. We broke the generations up into the decade people were born because it just makes much more sense. Everyone relates to their high school classmate. Those early millennials, if you will, born in the 1980s, have already formed 20 of their 24 million households. They're out of the house. They're starting to become homeowners. that's the millennial home buyer, if you will. 15 years, a lot of them have in the workforce, but of a really crappy economy, heavily laden up with student debt. They invented the sharing economy, so they're doing a lot of things that are very different. In fact, one of the interesting trends you may be interested in is dual masters, because some of them are living multi-generationally with another family member, or even renting out a room or two to a friend of theirs just to give them lower rent and have some rental income to pay the mortgage.
So you're seeing housing design change to dual masters?
Totally, yeah.
Upstairs, downstairs, or?
Some of both. One of the more interesting trends we're finding on the older buyer now is it used to be the 55 plus buyer had to have a master bedroom down. Now we find in these closer in urban areas that are walkable where they really want to live, they're totally fine with the master bedroom upstairs. Like, I've got another 15 years in me before I'm going to need the master bedroom downstairs. So we're seeing a shift there too.
16 more years, I think.
Okay, 16 for you.
Nice. Okay, a big shift ahead, if you would.
There you go.
So you have a new book out. What brought you to the point of writing the book, and what need does that book fulfill?
So in order for us to advise people, we needed to understand the demographics, and there was so much confusion out there. Most of it had an element of truth to it, just like I explained about the millennials, the early millennials being very different than the later millennials. I took one of our top guys, Chris Porter, who actually 10 years ago used to work for you. I stole him from you 10 years ago.
He's outstanding.
He is outstanding, and made him our chief demographer. And what I thought would be a nice 1 year long project turned into 3. But we really got under the hood, and I think we uncovered a lot of things that can help business people understand the demographics, because so much of it is about policy, but really that doesn't matter as much. It's understanding your customer, and that's what our clients need to do.
Okay, you guys work pretty well together, right? Now imagine working even better in a seamless partnership as a finely tuned duo, a well-crafted combo. Okay, you get the idea. Look, these days product data is everything. Consider all the time spent creating and updating all that information about the products manufacturers make and retailers sell. You think you're in control of your product data, but maybe it's product data that's controlling you. For every product, there could be dozens and dozens of versions and variations and styles. Just keeping all that product data current and accurate between manufacturers, retailers, and all of those online channels, well, it's enough to strain even the best partnerships. After all, manufacturers should not be the data bad guy, and retailers should not have to beg for data updates and revisions. Engaging in endless conversations about product data details is not why either of you got into this business, now was it? But solving all those headaches is exactly why we did. We're Amber Engine, and we're built to make sense of it all, with a product that finally offers a data solution for manufacturers and retailers. All product data, all product imagery, gathered in one convenient portal, so manufacturers can manage and retailers can download data they want in the format they need, driving sales faster and more effectively to their customers better than ever before. Retailers and manufacturers should focus on what makes them great. Amber Engine solves the product data problem and helps make that possible. Get back to remembering why you got into this business in the first place. It's time for you to take control of your products and not let your product data control you anymore. Visit us at amberengine.com to learn more about how your life could get so much easier.
So what are 3 things to start to, let's just profile one of our audience members would be 3 location, traditional furniture store, retailer.
Right.
What do they need to know that they'll get from the book and from your speaking engagements?
Okay, so one would be, where is the growth going to occur? And 42% of America lives in the South, from Arizona through Florida up through the Carolinas, but 62% of the growth is there. So if you want to focus on where the growth is, it's states where income taxes are low, they're pro-growth, and somebody can buy a house for $250,000 and have a job. So if you're going to be growing your business, I would look there. I also think this big shift towards urban is going to shift back right now, and that's a bit controversial, but I can share a little math with you.
Correct.
So we had more than 5 million, an increase of more than 5 million people aged in their 20s over the last 10 years. That tells me we're going to have a growth of 5 million aged in their 30s over the next 10. And we're already seeing them say, you know, I need a good school district. Urban is not good schools. I need a place to raise a family. I've got a pet. It's pointing to suburban. So we're seeing suburban come back.
So what I'm hearing, that the promise of what urban life would be, and not initially the older cities, but those second tier and third tier cities, never really was fulfilled, where you had the great schools, you had that kind of lifestyle.
Well, the better schools tend to be in the suburbs. That's just the way it is. And while I do think urban is going to still do okay, it caters to a very affluent person, and most people just don't have that kind of money, and they want a place for their kids to ride a bike. And so we think, I forget the exact number, but it's close to 80% of demand is going to be going suburban. And even during the last boom, it's been north of 70% still going suburban. So you read a lot of the articles, you think suburban was dead. That's not the case at all.
Oh, interesting. What about hiring? So what kind of advice can you give everyone that's struggling right now with finding the right employees for the positions?
All right. So we are having a big problem, and we are heading into a much bigger one. So for decades, we had between 2 and 2.5 million people per year turning 65. We're now 3.5 to 4 million people per year turning 65. The early baby boomers are dropping out of the workforce, even though they're more likely to work. Even factoring that in, a huge surge in retirement. So the labor force is just not going to grow by very much. The absolute population of people aged 20 to 64, which is going to make labor tight. So I'm a big believer there's going to be some wage inflation. The other thing going on with this, which probably impacts a lot of their plants, is automation. Companies are going to have to figure out how to get more things done with fewer people. That's one way to overcome the lack of labor.
Yeah, well, in home furnishings, speed to market and customization are really big deals, right? From the point it's ordered to the point it's delivered. So logistics is a big part. But you have not necessarily a ton of domestic manufacturing going on. With the new president coming in, he's talked quite a bit about domestic manufacturing. Do you see any kind of shift to domestic that might be at a more rapid pace than expected?
You know, honestly, Dean, I really haven't looked into that.
But you know everything else, John.
Yeah, well, your point about speed to market is spot on. Trends do seem to be changing more quickly. So to the extent you can respond more slowly because you're manufacturing overseas, I can see that being a hurt, if you will.
You talked about automation and all, and us as a country coming up with more localized manufacturing and through automation and overcoming a lot of these different issues. It's going to be a matter of time before we have self-driving trucks to get products and things like that, but what else?
Yes. So I was just with the CEO of Prologis a few weeks ago, who told me we're 5 years away from self-driving trucks. He's going to be running his industrial facilities 24/7. I think that'll mean far less shipping costs, right? So that will be a big beneficiary to the customer and to the furniture stores that are on top of that. He kind of distinguished the long distribution from the self-driving trucks to more of the local distribution, which Amazon is a leader there. It's a different story there.
So aggressively. Interesting.
Right.
Very well. Okay, how about housing style? We started before. What other changes are you seeing in housing as a result of the demographic shift?
Well, there's something where we coined the term Suburban, because urban areas have really cleaned themselves up and become much more desirable, and the suburbs have looked at that and said, hey, we want some of that in our city. So we're seeing a lot of the suburban cities bringing some urban into their cities, which is becoming really popular. It's a great way to live a little urban, less expensively. You probably still need a car until we have self-driving cars, I guess. But that's the big shift that we're seeing in development, is cities encouraging growth closer to their downtown, walkable to retail. We do a lot of feasibility studies on old shopping centers that are getting torn down and being built up with maybe some entertainment retail and some housing in the parking lot. And that's exactly what people are looking for.
Oh, interesting. And not necessarily by trains or by mass transit.
Well, by trains or by mass transit is popular too, but even a 5 to 10 minute drive to the train station is totally acceptable. It doesn't have to be right on the line.
Oh, interesting.
In the suburbs, you still need a car.
Okay, so smart technologies. You look at, like, I think Caldwell Banker did a report that said people have a higher propensity to buy a home if there's smart technology in that home. I think it was Gen Xers have the highest. But are there other facts that you've seen?
So when people buy things new today, they expect the latest and greatest technology. That's just a fact. So the home builders have been able to get away with charging a higher than usual premium over the resale market right now because of the new technology. So we are seeing that. But the entry-level buyer is really after the affordable technology. I want a keyless entry into the house. I want a security camera that I can check from work. It's not the big expensive stuff. The luxury buyer has a lot of money, and they're the ones that expect the most expensive stuff. But the entry-level buyer is still a frugal person.
Interesting. So before we wrap up, what are some predictions you have for the next few years?
Okay, so the most controversial one we have, but I don't even, if you did the math, I think you would agree with me, is that home ownership is going to continue to fall. And home ownership rate is just a big policy statistic. I would ignore it for your business. So I'm going to get a little wonky with some data here for you, Dean, but I think people care about the home ownership rate. It comes up all the time. So
Great.
It's just the total number of homeowners divided by the total number of households. Well, the fact we're going to see more household formation increases the denominator. That depresses the number. And then also the fact that we're going to see the earliest baby boomers start to pass away and move into assisted living facilities, and they have an 80% home ownership rate, that's going to drag the number down. So even I believe we're going to create 16 million more new homeowners over the next 10 years, which is a pretty strong number that will still make the home ownership rate fall just due to the math. So don't get caught up in the home ownership rate. Focus on the absolute growth.
What about for home building in general? The numbers seem to be going in the right direction, but is that false optimism?
They're going in the right direction, but they're going a lot slower than a lot of people thought they would. One trend that we're finding that may really surprise people until I put it into context with Uber and Airbnb taking a bite out of the taxi industries and taking a bite out of the hotel industries is people are starting to share their home more now. So you can live multi-generationally. The biggest supply of housing out there, frankly, is empty bedrooms in people's houses. And the fastest growing landlord tenant on Airbnb is senior homeowners. So I know a lot of people I explain this to tend to be business executives like, oh, I'm never going to rent out a home and a room in my house. Yet I'm finding more and more people who are not business executives but want an extra $800 a month later in life are saying this is a really good solution. In fact, I was just presenting this at the Urban Land Institute, which is a big industry event a few months ago, or actually last month. And one of the ULI execs came up to me and said, that's funny you said that. We've been renting out a room in our home to University of Colorado students the last 18 months, and we love it. It brings some youth into the house. It's an extra $800 a month that we use for our vacation. I really think this is a trend that's going to surprise some people and take off.
Fascinating.
And it'll take a bite out of construction.
Right. Okay, so I'm sure everybody would like to purchase your book. What's the availability?
It's available pretty much everywhere. It's called Big Shifts Ahead. We do have a website called bigshiftsahead.com, but you can go into Amazon or Barnes & Noble or anything like that. $20. There's a code in the back of the book, too, where if you put in the code on our website, you'll get up to 300 slides with a lot of this data in it. So pretty good deal, I hope.
I think it's a great deal. Thank you for doing this.
My pleasure, Dean.
Wow.